Welcome to this Friday Brunch Dhamma, 29th of May. This morning I'm going to continue with the talk on the fifth khandha, vijnana, consciousness. Now, first of all, you want to remember that the Buddha talked about the five khandhas. And the purpose is for us to use it as a vehicle of practice to the end of suffering. Now you find that some other traditions, have 8 types of consciousness. They have the storehouse consciousness, alyana, vijnana, and they may have tathagata kappa, bodhicitta. Doesn't matter. So long as when you use this information and then it gets you to the end of suffering, it has done its job. So different traditions want to stress or emphasize different aspects of the consciousness. So now I'm going to talk about a different type of consciousness called the transcendent consciousness. Now, you all know that the transcendent consciousness, consciousness that is attained by a Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and then, of course, the Arahant. Now, before we talk about that, we have consciousness that animals possess, consciousness that we humans possess, and consciousness that the devas possess. They're all different, right? They are all limited in one way. With the animals, they can't reason well, In every situation, they have this fear for their life, So any situation, fear arises, or craving arises, craving for food, That's it. Then when we come to the human condition, we have a better consciousness. We know our environment. We can enjoy our environment, but we also know situations where it is dangerous for us. Fear arises. Fear arises with regards to our survival. Fear arises with regards towards damage to ourselves. Fear arises towards the death of a person. Who has this fear? Now, when you come to the transcendent consciousness, it is also the same. Sotapanna consciousness is different. It's different from all the consciousness of the beings of the world. They are transcendent consciousness. So you have a human being with a normal consciousness, devas with a normal consciousness, or even brahmas with the normal consciousness. And we classify these people with normal consciousness as putujanas, people with ordinary consciousness. Now, if someone, whatever world they are living in, have a transcendent consciousness, then they have an Arya consciousness, a consciousness of a noble one. So you can be a human being with a transcendent consciousness. So you can be an Arya in the human form. You can be an Arya in a deva form, and you can be an Arya in the Brahma world. And certain Brahma worlds are just filled with Aryas. So when you reach the state of the Sotapanna, you have lost all this fear. Fear for oneself, fear for life. There are lots of fears associated with the self. So that's the state you are in, a transcendent state. You have overcome, you have understood that you have yourself created a view of self. And you've seen through it, that the self that you have is just a created view, nothing else. Nothing else. So when you come to that point, all your views regarding the fear of self just drop away, and there are loads of them. And that state of a Sotapanna consciousness is permanent. You cannot drop down to an ordinary consciousness anymore. If you do happens to fall down in a second or so, with effort, you will find that there is a whole difference in the level of consciousness. As soon as you reach the level of an ordinary consciousness, you have this overwhelming fear. But as you naturally goes up to a Sotapanna consciousness, all these fears disappear. So the thing to recognize is that it is permanent. You cannot revert to an ordinary consciousness as well. And the consciousness of a Sotapanna is different from a consciousness of a Sakadagami. There are two different types of consciousness. And what's the difference? The difference is the head and the last. These strong emotions do not present themselves in the Sakadagami. With animals, there comes a time when they are on heat. And when they have to seek the opposite sex, to exhaust, that feeling of lust, And for them, it is time dependent. It comes as a cycle, when they have to mate. For us human beings, we don't quite follow that cycle, but we are affected by what we see, right? Due to contact, this feeling arises, and inappropriate seeing, this lust arises in us, right? So when this lust arises in us, our body is heated up. The lust in the body, right? Feel yourself on heat. That's what this meant. With a Sotapanna, the same thing happens, but not as strong as an ordinary person. But with the Sakadagami, that doesn't happen anymore. For a human, I'm now talking about a human being. For a Sakadagami, you don't have this lust that comes up in the form of your heat in the body, that you have to get rid of this energy that's in your body that's created by lust. But you still have, as a Sakadagami, you still have this sexual attraction, a sexual desire, right? But it doesn't amount to lust. So your whole body and your consciousness is different from an sotapanna. When you get to the state of the anagami, then you a proper sakadagami, then a lot of craving is abandoned. A lot of craving is abandoned. You reach a state of like and dislike, but it can never go on to craving. Craving for things of this world. Now, that is the type of consciousness, right, that you can experience, that you can practice in this world as a human being. Now, there is a question, of path and fruit. When you become a sotapanna, baby sotapanna, on the path, when do you actually become a fully fledged sotapanna, a fruit? Magga and Phala, the Pali definition for it. Now, in every stage, there is the path and fruit stage. Right. But when you get onto the path of the sotapanna, it means magga. That means you are actually a sotapanna. You have broken the view of self, but it's not complete. If you think of a fruit, say a mango, then of course when a flower become a fruit, that's the path of a sotapanna. So you have a small fruit, then it grows bigger, right? And then it becomes ripe, and then it becomes fully ripe, right? So the question is, when does it become ripe? Sometimes you say, oh, we can know, it changes color. So the path, the change from the path to the fruit is not quite that distinct as people think. So when you become a sotapanna, you're on the path, right? When you become the fruit, you may just guess it, close to the truth, close to being the fruit of sotapanna. But you actually know when you're fully ripe, when you're full fruit of a sotapanna or sakadagami, anagami. Now the reason is this: you have to go through a process, Now when you come to the transcendental dependent origination, you have the stage of nibbida, and after nibbida, you have this stage of viraga. And after viraga, you have this stage of vimutti. Now, when you are at the stage of a path of a sotapanna, and even to close to the stage of a sotapanna, you are in this vimutti stage. It is only when you come to this state of asavakayena, the destruction of the asavas, That's when you truly know that you are fully fledged Sotapanna or Sakadagami or Nagami. So at that stage, you review what you have abandoned. You know that you truly abandoned the view of self, and plus the two other paramasa. You have this faith in the Buddha, and you don't believe in rites and rituals. I'll explain that much later in another talk. I'll emphasize that you have to go through this state, asavakayena. So you go through this asavakayena 4 times. At each stage you are, the stage you are, you have to review back. And until you review back, then you know you have abandoned or destroyed whatever that takes you to that stage. So when you are a fully fledged Sotapanna, then you can start to look at the feeling of lust, feeling of hate. At that stage, you're still a Sotapanna. You don't become a Sakadagami, a path of Sakadagami, until you have a breakthrough. When you have a breakthrough, you can say you are a baby Sakadagami, and then you grow into a fully fledged Sakadagami. So until you reach the state of Asavakayena, knowing the destruction of the Asavas, in this case it is lust and hate, then only do you know that you have attained the full fruit of the Sakadagami. It also happens in the stage of the Anagami. And it also happens in the stage of the Arahant. So the stage of the Magga and the Pala, the path and fruit, is not that really defined. So you can say until the stage, until you reach Asavakayena, you are still on the path. Right? When you have reached the state of Asavakayena, you know, right, that you have destroyed it, then you have the fruit. You can say it that way. Or you can say halfway along, you are right, but not fully right. Yes, it's a fruit. So it's all definition. But the path is clear. There is a path. There is the Magga, and that's the Pala, which is the fruit. There's a fully developed Sotapanna, a fully developed area. So it's not like once you break the view, you automatically, know everything about that state. You do not know. Right? So this stage of the Ariya, this transcendental consciousness, do not come automatically. You have to practice. You can definitely experience it. You can definitely attain it. How you do it, that's another talk. Right? But in this world system, 3 different world systems, you can only attain this transcendental consciousness by following the Buddha's teaching. No other way. Because there are 3 very fundamental things, 3 characteristics of life, which your own consciousness will have to see. That is, things are impermanent. that things do not have an essence. And grabbing to anything in the world causes suffering, causes dissatisfaction, causes agitation. Without seeing those three characteristics which are real in our life, we cannot penetrate through the delusion. There's no other way. No matter what you do, it is always a creation of the mind. It is only when you see the mind and its creation and know those creations are empty of any essence, that they don't last. And holding to that delusive creation causes suffering. Right. And when you see that, then you see that this self, which you consider so dear, is actually a view, something you created through lots of conditions. Once you do that, you have broken that view. Then you see a different reality. It's a sort of paradigm. So this is where I'm going to stop on consciousness. How we get to that transcendent state will be a different talk. So now that you've listened to this Brunch Dharma, got married, straighten your view, get even more merit. You practice, you get more merit from your practice. And all this merit, you want to transfer your merit to your departed relatives and help them. And what's more, you get bonus merit. So when I chant the transference of merit, you want to mentally transfer that merit to your departed relative. Yatha varivaha pura paripurinti sakaram meva ito dinam petanam upakapati ichitam patitam tumham kipamiva samijatu sabi purentu sankapa jando panaraso yatha manijoti raso yatha Sapitiyo vivajantu sabbarogo vinasatu mate bhavan vantarayo sukhi digayuko bhava apiwa thanasili sani jambuddha pacayino chatharo dhammava tanti ayuvano sukhang Balang bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sattha soti bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sattha soti bhavantu te Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghanu bhavena sattha soti bhavantu te.